So the fantasy very quickly becomes a reality, and it is hard graft, absolute hard graft, and it can be you can't I can't explain it any other way. You're now responsible for your own. You don't have a set salary, so it's like being on commission only. You have to
Yeah.
sell. If you don't sell, you're not going to put food on the table for your family. At the time I went into business, because I was doing well as salesman, we'd actually moved to our second house, and it was much bigger, and I'd taken on a bigger mortgage, but then I wasn't happy in that job. And so with my wife's support, we said, yeah, let's go into business. Anne was a full-time housewife and mother, and so there was only one salary coming in, and that's if there was a salary coming in, and that was only coming in if the business was successful.
Marc O'Dwyer, it is a pleasure to welcome you to the Inner Entrepreneur podcast.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks for having me on.
That's a pleasure. Marc, you're the former founder and the former CEO of Big Red Cloud, recently exited, so you're fresh meat. After all these years of backbreaking work to build a business, which I can completely relate to, what's it like to be on the other side? What's it really like to be on the other side?
It's very surreal, Paul. You go from 150 miles an hour to basically doing nothing, to having no pressure, nobody asking you questions, nobody on your payroll, no worries, no stresses. It's very unusual.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's hard to explain it. I've been busy doing things. It's 5 weeks now, and I've been busy doing things since. But that's fine. We've lovely weather, and the summer's here, and there's plenty to do. Come September, I might be banging myself off the wall. But it's just be careful what you wish for, because it all came pretty sudden.
And does it feel a bit like that? Be careful what you wish for, because there's so many people that will listen to this either in business or not in business, will be fantasizing, oh God, no, to have an exit in the business, wouldn't that be wonderful? And yet it's funny. Brian spoke a little bit about it at the event where we met it a couple of weeks ago, but I've heard other people speaking since about the trauma people can actually experience when they come out the other side of it. So it may not all be roses.
Yeah. So look, I had different offers over the years, and some of them were, 70% up front, 20% after 2 years, 10% after year 3, and you're working with the business, but you're working with a new owner. And I just thought, for my personality, Paul, that wouldn't work. And so my ultimate goal was to sell the business, get paid up front, no earnout, and not be required in the business. And that's what I had in my mind, and that's what I manifested, and that's ultimately what I got. But I'm still pinching myself that I got it, because not everybody gets it, and I consider myself extremely lucky that I did get it, and that Stuart McCall, the gentleman that bought me, just had done this before and wanted to a clean exit, so he could take on the reins of the business and move it in the direction that he wanted to. So it's you wish for these things, you pray for them, you manifest them, you don't ever think they're going to come true, and it has come true now. But I'm not yet. I haven't fallen into any dark corners or in any way. I'm a very positive person, and I have other things to think about now. It's a long time since I've had. I've never had a big chunk of money, so it's different, and no pressure. I'll never have to work again, so it's really unusual.
It's interesting, because everyone assumes business owners do have a big chunk of money. And I remember my father used to say this to me years ago. He said to me, Paul, you think I have loads of money, but it's all tied up in the business. And now that tends to be the way. I'm not saying you don't live well, but it's not sitting in cash. It's in the assets of your business. It's the cash flow of your business.
Yeah. So the business was very cash. It produced a lot of cash. And yeah, I had a nice lifestyle, but you're right. A high percentage of your assets are tied up in that business, so it's not liquid. It's like having it tied up in a property. And so, I have 4 daughters, as you can see. They're all at the age where most of them are at the age where they're looking at maybe buying properties. One of them has bought a property, and you would like to be in a position to be able to help them, but when it's tied up in a business, you don't have that opportunity.
Yeah, it's interesting. because I've three adult sons. Also, two of them have their own property now, and it's funny as a parent. It's like it's not your responsibility to house your children, but there's some degree of relief I experience with both of them when they finally own their own property. But the reason I remind is because um, when my youngest son, I remember I went with him to a viewing, and this is maybe 2 years ago before he bought the place he lived in, and left in the apartment block in Leopardstown. We were there, and there was a young lady there as well. And we were both rambling around looking at this. And so the showing was over. As we exited and we walked outside. She was very friendly, and she came up, started chatting to us, and she said to my son, "Oh, you have an unfair advantage." And he goes, "What's that?" I said, "You have your dad with you." And that's the reality for that. That is the reality for people.
Yeah, it is. No, it is a reality, and I don't know what it is about Irish people having to and wanting to own their own properties, but it's like it's in our DNA. But it's getting more. It is more difficult for younger people nowadays. So, as a parent, you do have a desire to help them out as much as you can.
It's interesting when we were at the Plan Your Exit event that Brian Keegan organizes, and I interviewed Brian a couple of weeks ago on the podcast, and he spoke about the fact of this earnout thing that you spoke about. You're trying to avoid, and he obviously has a lot of practical experience of this, and I mean practical experience. I mean speaking to business owners, not what they tell you in the books.
Yes.
Um, and he said that he had of 40 owners who had exited that he'd spoken to with earnouts. He either said none or only one of them had actually ended up with the earnout, and one had ended up giving money back. So I was really stunned by that. So I think you were probably wise to avoid an earnout because it seems that mostly they don't, you don't end up getting them. Like the buyer has some plan or system, but you end up walking away from whatever it is 20% of the value of your business.
Yeah, no, I was very aware that I knew of people who were in that situation. And if you think about it, Paul, if you sell 70 or 80% of your business and then 30 or 20% of it is on an earnout, you've handed over the majority control to the new owner. So you've lost
Mm.
control of the costs, which means you've lost control of the profits. And generally, the 20 and 30% that you are earning out is based on that. But if they decide to spend more money on marketing, that's going to eat into the profits. And so the conversation they're going to be having with you when the time comes is, well, we didn't make the money we said we would, but they
Yeah.
didn't because they've been spending money in marketing, and probably after the date you were meant to earn it, that marketing will come to fruition and they'll benefit from it, but you won't benefit from it.
And also possibly they know exactly what they're doing,
Oh, I
which,
think
which, which
there's a lot of
yeah.
that.
And it's funny, before I'd spoken to Brian, I mean, I know I've listened to you speak a couple of times, and you, rightly so, you consider yourself a good salesman, and and I have this fantasy at some stage because I've been selling all my life. I have this fantasy at some stage of sitting in a room with a buyer. And I mean, I think I'm good in that situation. I'm well able to speak. I'm well able to do a deal. And up until a couple of weeks ago, I had this fantasy that I would be the guy sitting in a room doing the deal. And then Brian is going, no, it's the worst thing you can do. And I heard a couple of people go, no, don't be in the room. And that was the first major learning from me from that event, was that my mindset totally shifted and going, no, I employ someone. Like what I've done for the past 30, 40 years is run a business. I have no experience in buying, selling, and businesses. So why am I deluded to think, is that the entrepreneurial thing? I'm deluded to think, well, I'm obviously the best guy to do that. And thankfully I had to turn on and goes, no, you're the worst guy to do that. Employ someone who is an expert to do that. Now it makes sense, but it didn't make sense until it was told to me.
Yeah, no, I was of the same mindset as you, Paul. I said I can sell anything, I can sell my own business. But
Yeah.
I quickly realized that's not the case. It's a very intense process where the seller should be at arm's length. Now, I was involved in the due diligence very heavily, but there were times when situations would go against my personality and I'd get a little bit
Mm.
agitated. And so it's
Mm.
good to have somebody in your camp that has done this before and knows how to deal with both the seller and the buyer. It's really, really important.
I think so. And it's interesting when I speak to, I mean, most business owners I've spoken to over the years, and everyone thinks we're driven by the pursuit of the dollar. Obviously, of course, we are, but mostly when I get to know entrepreneurs, I find that the biggest thing they're pursuing in starting their own business, running their own business, is freedom.
Yes, yes. Um, well, obviously you're chasing the dollar, but
Yeah,
that's one of
of
the key
course.
reasons we do it. Um, but it is the freedom to be able to do what you want when you want. Now, a lot of people would say, I had a lot of freedom as a business owner. You know yourself, you can come and go as you want, and I've been able to manage life in and around that. Especially being around for the girls and being home for dinner every day.
Mm.
That's been very important to me over the years. Going to all their sporting events, really, really important. So I probably did have the freedom, but in one sense, I didn't have the freedom because I had people dragging out of me. I was responsible for people's mortgages, for their children, for their wages every month. So, making sure that the sales targets are hit every month. We took on, we took a loan on in 2019 of 2.5 million. So you're responsible for the repayment of that. So while you have freedom in your
Yeah.
time to do what you want, you don't have 100% freedom. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, entirely. You don't have 100% freedom, but you have the freedom that, I mean, you have the freedom that nobody can tell you what to do. Like you, I have a lot of freedom. I did say to a couple of years ago, walking somewhere down the west of Ireland, something on a beach one day, and talking to my wife about the business. And certainly, if you structure and run a business properly, you can have a lot of time freedom. And I said, and she asked me about it, and I said to her, "I'd like to walk along the beach someday and not have to think about the business."
Yeah.
And that is it, because it, once you own a business, even if you have really good people running that business, it never leaves you.
Never leaves you. So like that happened to me. So we closed the deal on the 4th of April. Monday the 7th of it was Friday. Monday the 7th of April, I woke up and I didn't have to think of the business.
Yeah.
And it was like, yeah, it was amazing. And I've had 5 weeks of not thinking about it, and it's been brilliant. Now, obviously, I've been in touch. The new owner's been in touch a few times.
Mm.
They have a policy of working 100% from home, so they didn't need the office. I
Yeah.
own the office, so I got the keys back last Wednesday. So there's been a bit of touch, conversations with them, and
Mm.
some of the staff been in touch. But there's no worries, questions, or concerns
Mm.
entering my head any longer.
But I think maybe, if I could say, you're probably in the honeymoon period.
Yeah,
And I agree with you that possibly, and I imagine the honeymoon's going to last, right? I mean, the weather's beautiful today. The honeymoon will last, I think, when the dark winter comes in, because the, I mean, I think you've been in business about 30 years. Is that
33
correct?
years.
33 years. So it's a hell of a long time to have massive drive, massive focus, and to have that thing that we both know of a business in your head all the time. And it obviously is a huge part of your purpose. And that's my guess, that when, as the year moves on, you'll need to find new purpose.
I 100% agree. I mean, I am in the honeymoon period, and it's been made all the more better because of the sunshine
Yeah.
and some activities I've had recently. So yes, come September, October, and the dark, dreary days of the Irish winter, if I'm sitting inside twiddling my thumbs, it will be a completely different story, Paul, for somebody with
Yes.
my personality. I agree.
Yeah. So have you planned for that, or are you just letting that evolve?
No, I nearly invested in a business 2 weeks ago, and then I said, you know what, it's too early.
Mm.
I met a friend of mine this morning who he sold out 65%, and he's due to finish up the buyout in June, but it's owned by a public company, and they won't have their accounts done for 11 months. And so he wouldn't necessarily get his money till
Mm.
2025, 2026. So,
Mm.
but the point of me telling you that is that he's looking at other opportunities, and if something comes up, he might like to get me involved. I just got off the call from a guy who used to sell software for in the UK. He's looking for help with his business. The accountants that did the financial due diligence have asked would I like to sit on a few executive boards. So I said I would. So nothing concrete has come up, Paul, but I'd like to think somewhere in the mix there'll be some. I'm available for consultancy to anybody who's listening. I'll just do an unapologetic plug there.
Mm.
So I'm speaking at the All Ireland Business Summit on the 30th of May. It's just that they asked me they're going to induct me into their Hall of Fame. So I think opportunities will come from that as well.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think I suppose it's the opportunity like that will give you new purpose. I was speaking to a guy recently who exited his business about I don't know 7 or 8 months ago, but he made a decision that I thought was very wise at the time, and he said that he wasn't going to make any major decisions for 12 months, and that he wasn't going to invest in another business, or he wasn't going to he'd been offered positions, he wasn't going to take a new position. I felt it was very, very wise. It's entirely different, by the way, in my view. Taking consultancies are things you can drop in and out of, but making a major commitment after 33 years, I think you need time to ponder that and to see, you know, I was going to say the quote, to see who Mark is without the big red cloud.
Yeah, no, you're right. And a friend of mine sold his business, and I told him to do nothing for 6 months, and then there was I 3 weeks out looking to invest in something, and somebody said, "Do you not take your own advice?" So,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah,
at that plan your exit events, Paul Colin Cullotten, I think, put up a slide from Dennis O'Brien, which said he'd invested in loads and loads of things in the first year, and 90% didn't work out. So his advice to anybody is do nothing for 12 months.
yeah, yeah. Um, at that event, you said you used a word that you've used twice already in the podcast, so I'm really interested. Because you said this at the event as well. You said you manifested the outcome you wanted.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
So I had a number in mind that I wanted for the business. I had the scenario, which was what we spoke about earlier on, that I didn't want to be involved in it or an earnout, and I wanted them to keep my staff. And I went to a guy called Jack Black. It's not the comedian Jack Black. It's a
I know
Scottish
Jack Black.
guy. Yeah, so he
Yeah,
has the MindStore
yeah,
process where you build your dream house in your head, and in that you have two rooms. So you have a boardroom. At the board table, you put a couple of people that you would admire in your life. So it could be Nelson Mandela, it could be Richard Branson, so maybe it could be your mother, it could be your wife, it could be your brother. You put them at the table and you start discussing the topic you want to discuss, and they start talking back at you. So it's a little bit, you know, gaga kind
yeah.
of stuff. But that was one room. The other room is a cinema room, and there's three big cinemas. You walk in, cinema screens. You walk in, there's one chair, and you sit in the chair. On the left hand screen, there's the problem or the challenge you have at the moment. In the middle, it's where you currently, so it's, sorry, the left hand shows you where it came from. The middle one is what the problem is, and the right hand screen is the solution. So I use that regularly, and I go to bed every night, and I manifested the number I wanted and what I wanted, the scenario I wanted, and I wake up every morning and I do the same, and I would include it. I say my prayers, and I would include it in that, and I guess I got lucky. But the story about Stuart was I was introduced to him in April 2024. He had this concept that he had been buying software business for the billionaire. He wanted to do it in Ireland, but he didn't have the money. So I
Mm,
said, you know what, Stuart, I don't think you're quite there yet. I need somebody who's solid, has the money, and we're good to
mm,
go. So I said, look, I'm not going to do anything with you. And then I went off, and we were involved the with a business in selling it to a Canadian company. And being an accounting software business, Paul, our accounts are spot on. They're really, so we have all the financial information anybody would want. And
mm,
that's a really important thing for business owners to know,
mm,
that they have to have a solid set of accounts in the background for when they undertake this process. So we had given everything to the Canadians. We'd gone exclusive with them, and towards the end of September, they said, "Oh, we see you capitalize your R&D, and that's something that we do." And they said, "Well, we don't do that in Canada, and so we can't go ahead." But that information had been given to them since we'd
mm.
gone exclusive with them in June. So that's what I'm saying. These processes do drain you.
Yeah.
So anyway, I went
And,
back to
and that
Stuart.
must be infuriating with you because you've gone exclusive with someone, and now at the end, close to the end of the game, you go, no, it's no deal. We can't do it because of this thing.
Yeah, and bear in mind, you're running a business as well, and you're trying to,
Yeah, yeah,
in our case, we weren't telling the staff because we didn't
mm,
want to upset them in case it didn't go ahead, and that one didn't go ahead. So then I
mm,
went back to Stuart, and he still hadn't found uh, a company to buy, and he said, "Look, yours is ideal for us. It's a platform. We can cross sell other software into your customers. You've got so many diverse customers, and if I get a verbal off you, I'll be able to get the money." So I said,
mm,
"Okay, yeah, I'll give you the verbal, and let's see if you can get the money." So Dunport Capital, who lent us that 2.5 million in 2019, we're going to offer them the money. And they said it'll be a very fast due diligence process because we know the company and they paid us back that 2.5 million. So we know them
yeah,
like the
yeah,
back of our hand. But we're only going to get 70% up now, 20% in 2 years, and 10% in year three. And I thought about it and I said, no. And that was the scenario I didn't want. And I said, no,
mm,
Stuart, no, it's not working. So he went off and he
yeah,
found Melior Equity Partners, which were a great company, and they loved his idea and his concept and have put money in to buy Bigger Cloud and a fund to buy other software businesses. And that was giving me the 100% that I wanted up front with no earnout and keeping the staff. And so, you know, if you want something, Paul, you need to really don't settle for second best. Try not to be under pressure when you're selling your business.
And do you think I mean, I, a lot of what you're talking about there is something I do. I had a call with someone a couple of hours ago, and I was showing them a life plan I've created where I literally have. I mean, I did it 15, 20 years ago now, have mapped my life out. So it's kind of very similar in that I have created a picture of what I want in my life. And I suppose I could say I have manifested a lot of it, a huge amount of it. And yet, if you go into, I mean, the word manifestation is used so much now, and the part of it, I was surprised to hear you say it, but the part of manifestation I don't like, I hear none of it in what you're talking about. In fact, but the part of manifestation I don't like is the suggestion that you could do your visualization practices and nothing else. And I think that's where I think to me, as I'm listening to you, it's a wonderful add-on because you're running your business, you're planning to you're doing all the stuff. And what I'm picking up is because you had impressed this, I suppose, in your subconscious, you were very clear on what you want, and you were beginning to fuel the belief of which gave you the courage to go, look, guys, this is what I want. You're not offering it, so no. Um, but it didn't magically create it for you. Or
No,
do you believe that it somehow led to do you believe that there's some process that also led to it happening?
oh, 100%. You can't. No, you're right. You can't sit back and just manifest and put your feet up and think it'll happen. There's a lot of
Yeah.
hard work that goes on, and you
Yeah.
know this may not have happened. So you're still running your business, and you still need to make it successful. So I was up, I was working on other opportunities. One of
Yeah.
which I gave to Stuart, and when I told him about it, this is when the deal was closed because I hadn't told him, and it wasn't something concrete, so I couldn't use it to gain more value for the business. But I
Mm.
gave him a huge opportunity in the UK, handed it to him, and he says, I can now rip up the 150-page proposal that I gave to Melior, how I was going to grow this business on that deal alone. But I was
Mm.
working on that on the background. So if the deal didn't go ahead, I would find somebody else in the future that my
Yeah.
manifestation would lead to. But I wasn't sitting back and just hoping that it was gonna happen. You've got to work at it. They don't these things don't come to you.
No, they don't come to you, but I think it's a great addition to you're doing the hard work, but you have the focus as well. Something I heard you say, and it could have been I can't remember what I heard you say that and now maybe it's something that came out of the Jack Black MindStore. I don't know, but I heard you say something that I noted was you said you have to clear your mind, focus on the goal, and come up with a solution. And when I heard you say that, I wondered, what's your process for that? I mean, is that a system you use, and how do you go about clearing your mind?
Well, personally, I go about clearing my mind by getting out and doing a run or a cycle or a swim because that's what I'm involved in. But for other people, that might be going out hill walking, just walking, climbing, playing tennis, playing golf. So you need to extract yourself from the complicated situation you're in by freeing up your mind to concentrate on something else and then get back to it. It's really
Mm.
important. That's how you clear your mind and focus then. And then with a clear mind, and whether that means sleeping on it and coming back to it the next day, you then start addressing the situation that you have and try and turn the challenges into opportunities.
I suppose the longer you stick at the challenges and the longer you work at them, they turn into opportunities. And if you don't have that approach, then they remain problems for you.
No, that I don't use that word problems. I call them
Yeah.
challenges. So they
Okay.
remain challenges for you. But a challenge is something to be overcome. A problem has a whole other kind of meaning. So I always look at at basically I look at challenges as opportunities, and then I try and use um, outside the box thinking of how to come up with a solution to get the end result that I'm looking for.
I'm hearing a lot of positive psychology in there. I'm wondering, is this something that's just your nature, or is this something you've studied a lot over the years? And is it something you've deliberately adopted and created, or is it just your nature to think and behave that way?
Me and Study Paul aren't great. We weren't best friends in school. Sport was my buddy in school, and I concentrated on that. Obviously I went to college and I've done other extracurricular courses and things like that, but none of them are psychology. That's my
Mm.
nature, and I guess it's from being in situations that were difficult at the time that needed to be overcome, and having the ability to think outside the box and come up with a solution. I mean, there was a time in the Big Red Book when all four salespeople walked out. And this is going back a long time because I had changed their sales commissions, and they decided best thing to do for them was to walk out. And so I went out the following week and I did 10 demonstrations and I got 9 orders. And then I replicated my demo on a video. And if a customer was looking to buy, like a prospect, I would say to them, look, we'll send you a video out. So this is, maybe some of your listeners wouldn't know what a VHS is, but you know,
How
um,
long ago is this, Mark?
um, that would have
If it's
been,
VHS, it's 15 years ago, is it?
oh yeah. It was the late 90s, I think. Would that be
Wow,
right?
wow,
Late
it's a
90s,
long time
maybe.
ago. Yeah.
Yeah. So actually, no, it wasn't. It was I bought Big Red Book in 2001, about
Yeah.
2002, I'd say
Yeah.
2002.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
It's
yeah,
over 20 years ago.
23 years
Yeah.
ago, 20
Mm.
years. So anyway, the customer would ring up. They're potentially looking to buy Big Red Book. I'd say, okay, look, we'll send you a video out of the demonstration. If you
Mm.
purchase having watched the video, we'll give you 50% off your first year's annual support, and provided they send the video back. So the video then became the salesperson, and I saved $250,000 in salaries, commissions, motor
Yeah.
expenses. But that's what I mean by, you're thrown into a situation, you've got an issue, you go clear your mind, you come back and see if you can come up with a solution. And that's that. Yeah, that was just one of those situations that worked out. But
Yeah.
I haven't done any research. I haven't done any study. It's in my nature.
Well, that's a great nature to have.
It's lucky, yeah, it is, yeah. And it's
Yeah.
helped me in over the years.
Of course, yeah, because again, when I talk to entrepreneurs, I think a, a lot of people that are not in business have a fantasy about what it's like. So, what's your perspective on the over the years to get you where you are on the fantasy versus the reality? I mean, and what I mean by the reality, the risks you've had to take, the hard work you've had to put in, the challenges you've had to overcome. Could you talk a little about what the reality of dealing with those is, as opposed to maybe the fantasy people have of outside? Because people might hear, "Oh, we, bought this company and he's built it." Well, how lucky was he? you know.
No, I guess I fantasized first, Paul, when I went into business. I was a salesperson and I was doing extremely well for a business. And then I made the decision to go into business on my own. And what I didn't realize was that when you're a salesperson working for another company, you have 8 hours a day to sell. You don't have to worry about the deliveries. You don't have to worry about the invoicing. You don't have to worry how much money you have in the bank. And then all of a sudden you go into business on your own and you have 2 hours a day to sell. And the other 6 hours are doing all the mundane work. So producing those invoices, doing the deliveries, doing your cash collection, uh, do, going and dealing with suppliers. So the fantasy very quickly becomes a reality, and it is hard graft, absolute hard graft, and it can be you can't I can't explain it any other way. You're now responsible for your own. You don't have a set salary, so it's like being on commission only. You have to
Yeah.
sell. If you don't sell, you're not going to put food on the table for your family. At the time I went into business, because I was doing well as salesman, we'd actually moved to our second house, and it was much bigger, and I'd taken on a bigger mortgage, but then I wasn't happy in that job. And so with my wife's support, we said, yeah, let's go into business. Anne was a full-time housewife and mother, and so there was only one salary coming in, and that's if there was a salary coming in, and that was only coming in if the business was successful. So it was long hours, hard work. I set it up with probably too little, £2,500 at the time, with another guy. So we had five
Sounds
thousand
like you've had a
pounds.
good return on investment.
Yeah, yeah. Well, 33 years later,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and the scars on my back.
And the scars, that's compounding for you. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but it after 2 years that it wasn't working out with the other chap, and so he decided to leave. So then I was left with a few challenges, but 33 years later, I managed to overcome all those challenges. But every day in business, Paul, there's challenges. It's not
Yeah.
by no means is it a fancy. It's hard work, and but when you when you manage to overcome the challenges, the buzz that it gives you is incredible. And then when you manage to get to a situation in life where the company is working for you and you have the free time, it's brilliant. But that's not something that comes overnight, guys. Anybody's listening, it's taken me 33 years. It's not. Now,
Yeah,
it
it's
has
an
taken me
overnight
33 years to get to that stage.
success after 33 years. Uh, I hear a lot of people talking about starting business and entrepreneurship, and I have a notion that I think probably most people actually aren't cut out for it. And I say that because, well, I've been in business decades, but there are times, and this only crossed my mind the other day, but there have been, a number of times. I'm sure it's the same for you, where it has been enormously challenging and enormously mentally, physically, emotionally stressful and draining. And I also have a very positive approach in life. And you look back in these, and they're great stories, but when you're in the middle of them, they can be horrible to experience, and because you don't know you're going to come out of them. So my notion is, just not everybody is cut out for that. I, I
I,
just don't think everyone is suited for that.
I had this conversation last night with the blonde girl there. She's my youngest, who's doing Commerce International, and she's doing her final in I think it's Entrepreneurship tomorrow. And she said, like, in her opinion, you're born an entrepreneur. Like
Yeah,
they've been teaching this for the whole semester, and she said, like, they can drill it all into you. It doesn't make you an entrepreneur. So
yeah,
it does take a certain type of personality. I did the international selling program, Paul, with Enterprise Ireland and DIT, and as part of that, they do a personality profiling test on you. And then day one, they bring all 80 entrepreneurs together. And the girl who did the profiling test said, do you see that room? It's full of type A personalities. They'll all take a risk. You're the only one who came back with a double risk profile. So I'll risk the risk. Now,
wow,
now that's something, but what that does for me when I'm in business and I have challenges is that I sleep sounder the more I'm under pressure, which is a really, really unusual. So the more money we were owed, the sounder I slept, because I guess I had an inherent confidence and in my ability that I would eventually overcome. Now, that's not saying challenges didn't go on for days and weeks and months at a
yeah.
time. They did. So I don't want to give the wrong impression to anybody. It's not easy, but you do have to have a certain type of personality and a strong gut to be able to put up with this stuff. It can break the best person out there, Paul.
I think so, and I think you kind of nailed it on the head there when you said you had a high risk tolerance. I would say I have a high risk tolerance, or had or have a high risk tolerance. I can take risks and not worry about them. But when you talked about, having to borrow a couple of million number of years ago from investment in the company, um, I have had opportunities in the past, maybe 5 or 7 years, where I could have borrowed that sort of money to invest in the business and do certain things to grow the business, and I chose not to. Um, I'm not sure. So I'm in my late 50s. I'm not sure if I would have made that choice if I was in my late 40s. But I don't know if it's an age thing now, but I'm at a point now where I don't want any debt personally or in the business, and I don't have it. And I just enjoy living that way. So I'm wondering, I still think I have a high risk tolerance, but I think as I've maybe it's I don't need to do it anymore. I think maybe as I've gotten older, if someone comes into me and goes, "Look, borrow a couple of million and you can do this," I'm going, I have enough already. So I don't know if that's lack of I don't know if it's lack of ambition
So sorry,
or if
Paul,
it's just
do you have any regrets for not doing that?
no, it was the right decision for me.
Okay, well, that's good. Because the worst thing you can do is be presented with an opportunity and it
Yeah,
maybe to take a risk,
yeah,
decide not to do it, and then live with that for the rest of your life. And so if you're going to make a decision, be 100% happy with the decision you're making, and you can move on with your life.
yeah. But I think also you have to know. I think also you have to know yourself, and I think that's a really really good decision. Is ultimately what are you going to be what are you going to be happy with as an individual, not let other people make that decision for you.
Yeah. The question is, though, Paul, if I reset that personality profiling test now, I'm wondering would I come up with the same double risk?
This
Because
is
I'm similar age to yourself, so it'd be interesting to have my thoughts and my aspirations change so much that I wouldn't necessarily. It's interesting because we obviously I've got to make the money. I don't want to sit in there doing nothing, and
mm,
so the financial advisors are saying, well, we need to take your risk appetite and your wife's risk appetite and try and match them because I'm up here and she's down there, and so
yeah,
somewhere we'll
yeah.
meet in the middle, hopefully.
I would be the same. Yeah, my wife has a much lower risk appetite, but I also think that's good, uh, because that brings some level headedness to it. But interestingly, mm, I I invest my own money. I don't hand it to anyone else to do it. And friends of mine that know that, when we have the kind of crash in the markets that we had thanks to Trump and his wonderful tariffs over the past couple of months, people people will look at me and go, "Oh, how are you finding that?" And I can honestly answer and go, "Doesn't cost me a thought." I mean, literally. So it literally doesn't cost me a thought, and I think it's a couple of reasons for that. One is because I've been in the markets a long time, and I feel I'm kind of going. That's like going out in December and going, "It's freezing cold." Yeah, it is, and if you just wrap yourself in a coat, June will arrive.
Yeah,
But I
yeah,
think if you've been through many seasons, but it was interesting for me that with this, I really didn't give it any much thought. And I was with my auditor today, and he asked me, "How much money do you have in that account, Paul?" And I said, "I said I don't know. I can't tell you. I don't know. I haven't looked." And he meant my investment account, and I said, "I don't know. I can't tell you." I said, "I honestly, I haven't looked at it." I said, "And I haven't looked at it because I don't think I'll need that money for about 15 years." I said, "So why would I look?"
yeah.
And he said, that's the right answer. So I think
You're in for the long term.
I'm in for the long term, and I think maybe it's the same business thing. If you want to crack something in 6 months, a short period of time, then. But if you're investing for the long term, so maybe that's the age part of it. Maybe if I was 40 yeyears of age, I'll go, "Well, sure, I'll borrow the money. I'm going to be doing this for the next 20 years." Now I'm going, 20 years, I'm 80. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
hopefully I'm here and strong and fit and healthy at 80, but I don't want to be handling debt. Um, your passion for Ironmans, you have to talk to you. We're fellows. I'm a cyclist as well. I'm not at your level, but tell me about Ironmans. When did you get into it? Why did you get into it? What's it all about?
I started doing triathlons. I did a relay for a charity triathlon called Sporting Proud down in British Bay, and I put together being competitive. I put together a team So I did a relay. So I had a swimmer, a cyclist, and I was the runner. The swimmer got out of the water in 18th position. The cyclist was the Irish under 25 national champion. He put me out in the run in first position, and I was 5K into the 10K run, and this guy starts shouting at me, "Hey, Mark, I'm coming to get you." And I look around, it was Eamon Coughlin. And he goes like this. He did the same thing as he did in the Olympics. So he told me afterwards that he saw me warming up in the car park, thought it might be a bit of a challenge, find out what my name was, and decided to sprint past me to break my spirit on the run, which he did successfully. And so I came second to an Olympic runner. But that whetted my appetite for triathlon. I'm not a great swimmer, Paul. I was the way they taught me to swim in school was they threw you into the deep end, and I felt like I was drowning. So I've always been a bit nervous about the sea. But I really liked the whole concept of the triathlon. So I started working on the swimming, and I could run and I could cycle. And then I found I qualified to represent Ireland at age group level at 2 European Championships, 2 World Championships. And then my brother living in California says, "You should try an Ironman." And I said, "Paul, that's all very well for you. You're living in California, you have beautiful weather.
Yeah.
In the winter here, we're running up to knee deep in snow sometimes. It's frosty, it's cold, it's not pleasant." But I said, "Okay, right." So I said to my wife, and she goes, "Hold on a second. You're doing triathlon, and now you're telling Ironman is 4 times that distance, so you're going to be 4 times the training." So I said, "No." So Hans are very organized. So put a plan together, and then I booked Klagenfurt in Austria and did that. And I booked a 5-star hotel where the exit of the swim was in the garden of the hotel, and only guests were allowed to get in and see it. And she sat there among all these professional athletes stayed there as well. And they were the most handsome, fittest guys she ever seen. And she thought it was amazing. So it was like when I did that, she goes, "Oh, where's the next one?" So that's
Let's do this. This is great.
And then I thought, I would love to go to the World Championships, but
wow.
I never thought that was going to be possible. So I tried and tried and tried, and 7 Ironman into it.
To get qualifying times, is it?
Yeah. So it's every 5 years is the age group qualifying times, and usually there's up to 3 places per age group. So then
for the country, 3 places for Ireland.
No. 3 places for all nationalities in the given race.
Oh wow! Okay.
So there's it's about 3,000 people enter. There's
and
about
3 qualify.
50 among all the age categories.
Okay, sorry. Okay, I get you. Yeah.
But it starts, so it's 18 to 24, 24 to 29, 29, and so on and so on. So
yeah, so 3 people within your age category qualify, is what you're saying.
Yeah. So and I came at this very late.
Wow.
So I started in 2012. I'm now 60, so you can do the numbers. So I was in my late 40s, I think, when I started. So not ideal. So I kept on doing Ironman, and then I went to do Ironman Frankfurt, and all my girls came over with my wife. And after 100 kilometers on the bike, so it's 180k, I was just burning up. I wasn't feeling well. And what I realized now that I didn't realize at the time, I'd had shingles in 2018, and I just hadn't got it out of my body. And so I stopped. The girls were all there with the tricolour, waved me on, "Go on, Dad, go, go, go." And I said, "No, I'm stopping," because I'd promised them that if I felt at any point in time during a race that I thought this was going to be detrimental to my health, I would stop. And I'd given them that commitment. And so I just pulled out. But that to me was really hard decision for my personality, because I normally keep going and keep going and keep going. But when your body is overheating, your organs start eating themselves, and you can do untold damage to yourself. Yeah. So I said no. So I thought that was the end of my Ironman career. So that was 2019, I think. Then we had COVID. Then I wasn't really interested in 2021. And then in 2022, I said, "You know what? I'm going to give this one last shot." And I entered a thing called the Executive Challenge, which is for C-level executives racing against C-level executives within an Ironman competition. So it's even double whammy. And
all A-type personalities all out to kill and win.
Correct. And that was in August 2022. I had a bad shoulder that year. I went to my surgeon. He gave me injections to get through the Copenhagen race, and I actually qualified for the Ironman World Championships 6 weeks later in Kona. So I went back to my surgeon. They "Can you give me more injections?" He said, "No, you need an MRI. Just go take some Difene or really strong painkillers, do your World Championships, and come back to me." So you got to bear in mind, so I am a nervous swimmer. in two of those previous Ironman races, I had panic attacks in the swim, and I nearly wasn't going to, even though I'd done all the training, I nearly wasn't going to complete them. But I managed to pull myself together and get on with it and do the races. But Hawaii is shark infested waters,
Oh
and
God.
it's not a sea, it's an ocean. So it's very, very wavy. Now it's crystal clear, it's beautiful, but that
So you can
is,
see the sharks.
yeah, exactly. It's great. The challenge there is you need to be faster than the slowest guy. Then you're okay. You're okay. But
Yeah, exactly.
I'm a slow swimmer, so that was always in my mind. But yeah, getting to Hawaii was the pinnacle of a dream that I had,
Wow.
and
Congratulations.
I managed to bring two of my daughters over. The other two were working,
Wow.
couldn't come, and my wife isn't a long distance flyer, and my brother came over from California with his daughter, so it was just a very special occasion.
Wow. Well, congratulations.
Thank you, thank you.
Certainly, that your drive for achievement has many outlets. So maybe now, what will fill the gap will be your continued pursuit of Ironman championships.
No, no, Paul, I'm a believer in when stopping when you get to the top. It took me 10 years to
Okay.
get to Hawaii, so I'm not going to do
Yeah.
full Ironman anymore. But I have
Okay.
signed up for a half Ironman just to keep me busy. So that's half the distance, and I'm doing one in France in August.
Do you know, sadly, a friend of a friend died on a marathon about 4 or 5 years ago. Very, very sad. Well, I'm going to say young man, late 50s or whatever. But afterwards, what came out of the mix was that a number of people, he hadn't been feeling well, and a number of people had said to him, "You need to pull over, you need to stop." um, and he didn't. Just so competitive, and it just shows you what makes you so good can be the ruination of you if you don't listen. So you were very wise that time to get off the bike and go. You know what? This is not good for my body. I'll do it. I'll do it again. Um, well, Mark, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, and I wish you every success in the future. But listening to you for the past 45 minutes or so, I have absolutely no doubt that the next time we meet, you will be doing something amazing, and you will have turned your hand to something that's equally fulfilling. So, Mark, thank you very, very much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much, Paul. Appreciate it.